So even though I had these boundaries, my life wasn't getting any easier. And that's when I realized that I was doing the whole boundary thing wrong. The self-love, self-respect all have the word self in it. So the action had to come from myself. So how do you actually set up healthy boundaries? Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Evolve with Alana. Hi, I'm Alana. And today we're going to talk about boundaries. More specifically, how boundaries are supposed to function. You see, when I first was on this personal development journey, when I found out about this beautiful thing called boundaries, I was, I don't know, it seemed to be the key to happiness. You see, if you just had your boundaries, no one would ever disrespect you. If you just had boundaries, you could just feel true love. You can feel accepted. You would just ride through life with ease. Now, I don't know if it was because I had also sort of wrapped up the no is a complete sentence kind of vibe on YouTube, on the algorithms, or if it was just the world that we live in, or just the essence of the word boundaries. I had this idea about setting those boundaries as being something very harsh, something that I build this wall, this castle, and had 10,000 little men with little, little guns pointing onto the outside and telling people, stop, don't do that. Don't treat me that way. As I practiced that kind of boundaries, I found it was so difficult. I mean, feathers were ruffled here and there. And I'm not just talking about, the people we don't really don't really want to keep a close relationship to. Sometimes those are colleagues at work, the people that you see on the street, maybe randomly. For those people, those boundaries are just fine. It's those people that are closest to us where the real trouble was. When coming at it with such an abrasive tone, they felt so defensive, and then they would reach back. They would guilt trip me of like, I'm being mean, or why are you doing this? This is not like you. So even though I had these boundaries, my life wasn't getting any easier. And that's when I realized that I was doing the whole the whole boundary thing wrong. Because in my first attempt of setting boundaries, setting healthy boundaries, I thought it was a command. It's a, you don't do this. And so I changed my tactic. Decided to be a bit softer about it. Yes, I still have the walls, but now I guess my little army men on the wall, instead of holding guns, are have their hands in front of them and saying, please, please don't do this. Now that sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? Imagine being on top of a stone wall and looking at invaders coming to your wall, and the little soldiers on the top saying, please don't attack us, please don't attack us. So what do you think happened? Those same people that keep crossing my boundaries came right on over. I was feeling awful about myself and confused because, boundaries are supposed to be this thing that makes you feel good, things about respecting myself. And I seem to be failing at it so badly. Gosh, that was me realizing between those different two types of me trying to implement boundaries were years. And then I came across something. That upholding your boundaries has nothing to do with the actions of other people. Nothing. This setting boundaries was a self-love act, a self-respect act, which means the action had to come from me. The self-love, self-respect, all have the word self in it. So the action had to come from myself, not from the other person. So in setting up my boundaries, it wasn't a command for someone else to do an action, for them to change their ways. It was something I need to do to change my ways. So how do you actually set up healthy boundaries? So the first thing I found I needed to do was first be able to state the boundary that you have. If your boundary is camouflaged in the woods, other people can't see the boundary, so they don't know whether they have crossed it. So when someone actually crosses the boundary, let them know, I don't like that. Please don't. That could be your warning. So clearly state this boundary. If you want to get real technical about it, you could say, I have a boundary against blank. I have a boundary against people calling me names. I have a boundary against being hit. I have a boundary. And then this is the switch up. And then you express what you will do when that boundary is crossed. Now, the thing about this part of boundaries sounds oddly familiar, doesn't it? You think back to school and the playground. Kids are really good about boundaries. If you talk about my mama, I'm going to hit you. That kid just gave you a boundary. They told you what their boundary was. If you talk bad about my mama, and said what they're going to do. I'm going to hit you. Now, hitting people is not technically the correct way you should respond to your boundary being passed or jumped over. Because, look, then you're entering their boundary because obviously they don't want to get hit, and then it becomes a whole scuffle and everything goes to hell in a handbasket and we get in trouble and possibly go to jail. So what can we do? What actions can we do for when somebody crosses that boundary? We can remove ourselves from the conversation. We can remove ourselves from the environment. If you talk to me badly, I will walk away and come back in 20 minutes. If you come at me one more time, I need to take a walk. Removing yourself from that area, from that energy of disrespect towards you is so empowering. But some may think, hey, isn't that so disrespectful? You know, I'm in the middle of a conversation and someone crosses my boundary and I say, look, I don't like how you're talking to me about that, and I'm just going to walk away for 5 minutes and then come back. Don't you see that as disrespectful? Wasn't it so disrespectful for them to call you that bad name, to disrespect you, and you're worried about disrespecting them? I understand that power dynamics, especially in the workplace and at home, can be real difficult. Trying to set those particular boundaries. But isn't it worth it to uphold that promise to yourself that you are worthy of the respect that you need? And to be quite honest, if someone is constantly crossing your boundaries, you do not ever need to be in that person's environment. If a boss continually belittles you, you do not need to be in the company with that boss. It's time to find somewhere else. If you're in a relationship with someone who constantly belittles you, you do not need to be in that relationship. because they don't love you enough to respect your boundaries. We seem to, especially in love, to bend our boundaries to the other person to make them feel comfortable. But what about us? How are we supposed to feel comfortable if they continue to cross that boundary? And if someone does not let you leave, that is against the law. If they don't let you leave, if they force you, if they put their hands on you, that is not love. That is not respect. They have no reason to do that. So just to reiterate, boundaries, setting your boundaries is not a command. It's not an ask or a request. It is the stating of your boundary and then letting them know what will happen if that boundary is crossed, which is the removal of yourself from that situation. And then the execution of it. I hope you like this video. And I hope to see you next time. Bye.